Hey guys, Nathan here with my buddy Tim. Tim, introduce yourself to.
Yeah, I'm Tim Esterdahl. Sorry, early morning. I'm a freelance journalist, but I also run Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. It's a podcast. We do YouTube. We do websites. We actually have a Pinterest account. I have no idea how that works, but we have one.
Yeah, I have Pinterest too. No, we don't. So a couple of things. First of all, we're going to be talking about his truck, but we're also going to talk about a little bit of the history of the truck because it has an unusual name. He calls it the Swede. But before we get to that, Tim, you've written for 4 different magazines?
Yeah, so I do a lot of freelance work for Truck Trend magazine, for Four-Wheeler magazine. I have an article coming out this fall. I went snow bashing with a Jeep Club. It'll be in JP magazine.
Playboy too, huh?
Yeah, right.
Oh wait, no, sorry. Wait. That was
actually it's a really good gig if you can get it.
If you can get it.
Yeah, it's a tough marketplace. There's some work truck review. I did some stuff before. I've been ongoing contributor for PickupTrucks.com for many years. So basically the big outlets, but my stuff is always oddball, unique, evergreen, just like the Swede.
Okay, so let's get right to it. This is a 1962 Chevy?
It's a 1962 Chevy C10. It's got a 283 engine in it. Normally it was a 235.
Right.
That crapped out of me, and so I found a 283 out of 56 Bel Air, and we spent 2 months working in my grandfather's farm shop, swapping engines. So the history of it is it actually was my grandfather's old farm truck.
Right.
It's my wife's grandfather's, and it was sitting in a barn for goodness, 10, 15 years after he died.
Right.
And everybody in the family learned how to drive on this truck, or there's another green one in the family, but most people learned how to drive on this truck. And so I got it back out and went through it, and now I'm driving it. And I've been today I drove down to Denver, actually drove down to Denver Monday, and been in Denver a couple days. I'm driving home, so it's 200 miles to Denver. It's 5 hours.
Tim lives in Nebraska.
Oh, yes. I live in western Nebraska in the... not the flat part, but the interesting part. 20 miles from Wyoming. The family farm's actually in Wyoming, and so it's really cool to go out to grandfather's old shop. And he's got it's a 60 by 40 building, 18-foot ceilings, old tools, old oil smell.
Yeah.
It's just really cool.
Proper garage.
Yeah, and so I'm actually writing a book on 66 restorations. I currently own 4 Chevy C10s in that model year, and I have a 66 out there that I have the front end torn apart, and I have the engine coming out, and then I'm going to take the bed off and the cab off. I'm going to do all the body work and paint that one. Swede is never going to get painted, and he's never going to get fixed.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, the rust in the front fender, I'm going to let it go. And as soon as it rusts out, maybe I'll buy a new one and fix it all. But at this point, he's going to get clear coated. I tell people when it rains, he looks really good. It's got a really nice wet sheen to it, and so I'm going to keep that same color throughout. I'm not going to fix patina. I fixed the bumper a little bit, and that's about it. I have a lot more work to do in the cab. So the cab is going to look really a lot better when I get done with it. But so far, it's going to look how you're going to see it.
Well, let's pop the hood. We need to talk about its name.
Oh, yeah. So
come on.
Yeah.
Chevy truck.
Right. Kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
Swedish, right? Okay, so the story is that grandfather's nickname was Swede.
Oh, okay.
So when he was a baby, he got in his aunt's lap, and the aunt was like, "I don't care what they call you. I'm going to call you my little Swede." And his brother's name was Wyoming Pete. His name was Swede, and he had a couple other brothers that all had unique names. And so till the day he died, I always called him Swede. Nobody called him Eugene. It was always Swede. And Eugene was his real name. And so my family history, Esterdahl is actually a Swedish name.
Oh, okay.
And so it's pretty much a no-brainer to say, hey, let's just call it Swede. And so I got in the little town where my in-laws live, I got the Swede lettering on the back. And that's actually the farm town that the grandpa used to go to for coffee and all sorts of stuff.
So when this thing was putting around there, people are recognizing it. Saying, it's the Swede's truck, and now it's officially.
Yeah, so
that's cool.
And it's really cool to drive around town. So we had a lot of family in the area, and they tell me all the time, "Hey, I spotted you on the road. Hey, I spotted you over here, or I saw you, I just really enjoy driving it. It's no power brakes, no power steering. It's all manual. You got to think ahead. 4 on the floor for the transmission. But really, you have 3 gears.
Yeah.
Granular you don't use. Second's like 20, third's like 35, and then fourth is like everything else. So your entire goal is to get the 4th gear.
Right. Really long throws, too, I'd imagine. It's similar to the Saginaw that came after it.
Yep. So this is a 283. It was out of a Chevy Bel Air. It was sitting in the guy's engine shop. We have an engine builder in town. Sat in his shop for 20 years. And I walked in because the 235 crapped out, and people were giving me bids on 350s and all sorts of stuff. And I didn't want to spend a couple $1,000, so I bought this engine for $300.
Sweet.
And put new seals around the valve covers, cleaned it up. I went and got dual exhaust done by the guy in town, switched out the generator for the alternator, just really basic stuff. New carburetor, new distributor cap and points, new spark plug wires. The belt is funny. So the belt, my grandfather has on his shop wall just a ton of belts. He's probably got 100 of them. And so I was like, I need a belt. So I walked over and was like, let's see. So I would grab a handful of belts, come back, try it. No, go back, grab a handful of belts, and finally got one that fit off his wall. And then I found another one. So I grabbed that son of a gun, and I put that in.
Yeah, so you're holding on to it. I think a lot of guys who have tractors and whatnot and farm equipment, they would have to have a lot of different belts and whatnot because there's so many different sizes of engines and what have you that are... And in many cases, people swap out engines. This is very typical for what they used to do with these trucks, right? I mean, a lot of guys would throw a V8 in here or put in a different straight 6, and sometimes out of a completely different vehicle. It was common because back then trucks were so easy to work on.
Yeah, the best part about Chevrolet back then, and up until the 80s and 90s as well, is that the bell housings and transmissions fit a variety of engines.
Right.
So like the Blazer had like a 283 with the 4-speed. I mean, it was the same engine combination, so you could go get whatever and make it fit. I had a challenge getting the right bell housing, but I just had to go through a couple of them until I got one to fit.
Right.
But, that was very common. My 66 I'm working off of the book truck has a 250 inline 6. And so there's a 235, 250, 283, and there's a 350.
Right.
The biggest difference for those is going to be the placement of the fan belt. So when you do the V8, it's a smaller engine than the inline 6.
Sure.
And so if you notice on this truck, and you'll notice in the video, I don't have a shroud. And that's one thing that I could add later down the road. But the radiator guy was telling me, he's like, I had the radiator professionally serviced. He's like, if you're not going to hot rod it, you're not going to run into that many problems. And I mean, I'm not driving 90-degree weather 300 miles, right? So I could do a shroud, but right now it runs at 190 degrees all day, the whole ride, 190. It held tight. The other thing you'll notice is it's got the side engine mounts right there.
Yeah.
And right there. And I actually left the center engine mount right there. That center engine mounts for the V6, not V6, for the straight 6. Those engine mounts, that's the biggest challenge of switching the engine, was putting in the mounts on the cross members and getting everything lined up. I mean, I spent a lot of time on my back going, give me a quarter, give me an inch, and my uncle was on top. Fortunately, and I guess one of the reasons I really like this project is that I'm learning a lot. Mm-hmm. So I was a computer nerd growing up. I didn't know anything about cars and trucks. And so I spent 2 months with my uncle, who actually worked for the National Guard and was a mechanic. He worked on big trucks, engines, and tanks and things.
Right.
And so we spent an entire 2 months, every chance I get, with our travel, out there. And he's got an amazing selection of tools. And he basically taught me how to be a mechanic. There's several things you got to think about. Like with this, we always had to think about backwards. Like, how should it work? And then go from there. So the throttle. Throttle's a good example. I don't know if there's enough light you can see it, but the throttle here, this actually was pointing down on the 235.
Yeah.
So it would go down and go straight. Well, this engine sits up higher, so we need this to go up. Well, that's connected to the steering pedal, which is connected to a rod that goes behind the steering wheel. Well, that steering wheel rod has a cutout on it. So it's got like a C shape. It's like a piece of metal with a C cut.
Right.
Well, we couldn't put that in because the way it matched up, it always went down. So what we do, we grinded it off. We grinded that off, and then we grinded off the latch, and then we made it fit, and then we bolted it all down and tightened it up the best we could, and then we made it work. So it was the game of, how is it supposed to work? Okay, that's how it's supposed to work, but how do we make it work?
Right. Well, this is a fantastic truck to learn on. I mean, think about it. You have all the basics here without getting too technical. I mean, in terms of electricity and what you need to wire, I would imagine headlights and maybe a heater?
Yeah, so, and what's cool about it is when you do something like that, and you do a heater, like I put the new heater fan in, when you get that to work, it's like, you're done. Okay, that's how it works,
Yeah, that's it.
And so you can,
yeah, let's have a look inside the
the cab is, the cab's kind of a working piece of art. So first of all, there's a variety of things I got to fix. I got modifications on some stuff. Ignore the modifications. I put the floor mat in, so I put the sound dampener down there, and I gotta retap these. I got kind of angry at those. And then the dash. So I had to replace the dash completely, and I gotta really clean it up. But I'm not cleaning up yet because the fuel gauge still doesn't work, and I gotta get the lights to work. And so it's one of those things where it's like I'm gonna wait. You know, I had an editor tell me once, they were like, "Send me the story when the truck is done," and I laughed. I'm like, what do you mean done? Like it's never gonna get done. There's a variety of things. I need new sunshades. I need new windshield eventually. It's never gonna get done.
And think about it. There's a lot of guys out there who want to build something for SEMA. There's a lot of guys out there who want to build something that, it does go into a magazine. But there are a multitude of people who have a vehicle that is a driver, a farm truck, a work truck, an office truck, whatever it may be, and it's a constant work in progress. Mm-hmm. They're constantly just adding stuff to it, and this is a really good example of that, because what you've done here is you've added onto a truck that you don't want to overdo.
Yeah.
You mentioned before, you don't want to take off the patina. Now, you didn't add to this either. This is how the truck came.
This is how the truck came. I switched up the seat, and then, of course, the spring cut off on me, so I'll put a cloth seat over it. But, I mean, those are things you learn. Okay, well, the design there. There's nothing really added. The engine's new. The box in the back is a unique story, though. I should talk about that.
Talk about it.
Okay, so my father-in-law had a '55 Chevy, and it was a green pickup. Well, the green pickups back then were auctioned off by the National Forest Service.
That makes sense.
So they all two-wheel drive green pickups, right? So he got one. Well, that box came in his pickup, and that's actually a surveyor's box.
Oh, okay.
So
it actually had
yeah, you can flip that up. It's kind of heavy lift. It's not locked. Just here, let me help you.
There we go.
And you can see. Now I got tools in there, but if you zoom in, you can see the felt and the carpet.
Yeah,
and that would
the leather tie downs too.
Yeah, and that would keep his surveying tools in there. And so I use it as a throw-all. And then my plan is eventually I'm gonna go ahead and clean it all up, and maybe I'll probably have to rebuild it because it's so weathered. But I kind of just like it having the back. It's great to have a box back here.
Sure.
And keep shit in, or excuse me, stuff in.
That's awesome. So what about these? I know a lot of guys. This is a pain, but eventually I would imagine these are going to go away.
Yeah.
And be replaced.
Eventually I'm going to replace the wood. The challenge though is that I don't really want new wood, right? And so because if I do new wood, it looks weird. That's one of the reasons I don't fix the exterior, is because if you fix one part of the exterior, it's just creating a whole mountain, right? You're going to fix it all. And so my plan is to go buy some wood and put it out behind the shop and let it weather for about a year.
Oh, okay.
And then get it nice and weathered looking and then replace it. Because I'm just not interested in having this be that new a truck, because I also use this truck.
Right.
I think it's one of the things that is different is, like, today I drove 200 miles, or I'm going to drive 200 miles round trip with it,
right.
Or one way with it. I use it. I drive it.
Right.
I go to Menards. This is my trash truck. I throw stuff in the back. We go to the dump. I just, when I did the Million Mile Tundra story, what I realized is that the best thing for a truck is just to drive it.
Hell yeah.
And so I'm going to drive it all the time. And because that's going to keep the engine going, and then it gets me inspired to fix stuff, right? Because it's like I drove down, and I didn't realize this, but the windshield, the sun comes right on top of your kneecaps, right? So it's right through there as you're driving. Well, I didn't realize that. So I'm driving down, and like my legs are on fire, and I'm like, oh my gosh, right? And so like I'm trying to figure it out. Well, it's got vents in the sides, right here. You can probably get in there. There's a vent on the side, and that's a handle that you use to open the vents to the floor. It brings in cold air. So I'm driving along, and I've never used those before. And I'm doing 60. Well, Swede does about 65, so right in the good spot. And I couldn't figure out how to get those vents open. Well, when you're driving along, well, you know what it is? It fits my foot, the end of my foot, perfect. So I take my foot in there, and I can move that forward and open it, and close the vent. But that's something you don't know until you just drive it, and you're like, oh wow, that's how that works. And then I got in last night. Was driving around in dark. I took another journalist who wanted to have some photos done with it, and I have no dash gauge lights. I had them. so I don't anymore. So, so that's why the dash isn't screwed in, because I'm constantly pulling it out and doing it. And it basically have a whole new wiring harness because I replaced all the wiring.
Wow, it's interesting, a rolling piece of nostalgia like this. And the cool part is, a lot of us out there really would love to start working on a project truck, right? I mean, think about it. There are a lot of guys who watch our channels, our TFL Truck and the various channels you're working with and whatnot, and they're all thinking the same thing. God, I'd love to get a truck, get it home, and fix it up. And not only can you do that, but you can actually have it as a daily driver and as a proper driver's truck, something that you actually use for chores.
Yeah.
And you started with very little knowledge, and you're acquiring knowledge based on practical time with the vehicle.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
I did all the drum brakes. I learned all the drum brakes. I learned all the engine.
Four-wheel drums?
Yep, four-wheel drums. I learned, I bleed them. I don't like bleeding brakes. I understand how crappy drum brakes are to work on.
What was your choice of the tires and wheels? Kind of curious there.
All right, so this is interesting. Those are actually trailer rims. So I went in. So this is something I learned about trucks, is that everybody's got an opinion on wheels and tires. Everybody's got a damn opinion. Yeah. And they all are terrible, right? I want this, or you should do that, or you should do this. And I walked in and I was like, give me some cheap steel rims because I know I want to beat this truck up. Right. And so they sold me those, and the guys in the shop were like, do you want the chrome cap covers? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, we've never ordered them. Because nobody gets them for a trailer, right?
Right. Because they're constantly greasing and whatnot.
Yeah, and they got beat up over the winter. The spare tire over there is the one that looks really good. Yeah. And what I've learned was when I do the brakes, I keep pulling them off, and they just dent really easily. So I'm going to buy new ones. They're pretty cheap to do. But I went with this is a bigger tire. So the truck typically had 14-inch tires, which are about like that tall and about this wide. But I knew I wanted to do. Not off-roading, but I drive on dirt a lot. Yeah, sure. We have lots of dirt roads. So I was like, I wanted a bigger tire to fill the wheel well better, and it does. Yeah, it looks pretty cool, actually. That looks cool, and then this is the braided bumper. This is an aftermarket bumper. Mm-hmm. So what created the problem is the tail lights. They were in the regular bumper, they're halogen lights. Mm-hmm. They don't make them anymore. Oh. So this was the ingenuity. I actually figured it out on a plane. These LED lights, there's a bolt with a two-part epoxy, and it's on the back of the light, and I put a nut and a washer, and I actually fed that in and put a nut and washer on the backside, and I have them bolted together because there's a piece of metal in between this. Oh. And that's how they're held out. That's a sandwich. Yeah, so, and then I spent a day going, how far in do I want the light to be, how far out, and so I kind of gauged it, measured it, and I did the bolt in the washer, but I still can't get them to work. I have no turn signals. Well, you have arms. I do. Yeah. So if it's cold, I'm inside the cab. I do this. And if it's warm, the window's down. I'm like, stick your arm out. Then. But I mean, people get behind me and they slow down. They take their time. I'm not. The thing with driving a truck, it's like towing something, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not in any hurry. I let everybody pass me by. I'm not concerned with that at all. And so, yeah, there's stuff I got to still fix and still do, but I just really enjoy driving it. Well, we really do appreciate you taking time out, and because Tim is on his way back up to Nebraska right now. Yeah. And, so that's going to be a few hours. Hey, thanks for joining us. Can you do me a favor? Can we shut the hood, fire it up, and pull it out of here? I think you guys want to hear. Oh, absolutely. What it sounds like. What a proper V8 sounds like. By the way. Can you give the mic to Nathan? Yeah. Yeah. Hand me the mic. I'll hang out by the exhaust system. This brings back a lot of memories because my old man had a truck like this for a little while, which I think my brother lit on fire. But it was, I think we even salvaged a lot of it and then took it to my uncle's wrecking yard. Yeah, thanks, Tim. Yeah, thanks for having me. All right, here we go, guys. Gonna. All right, very cool. Bring it back.
Now that's cool. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.